All right, guys. Well, welcome to our first kind of lifelong learning webinar series. We've been doing a couple of webinars here and there, but we really want to focus on opportunities for Temple alumni and corporate executives to kind of get back and learn new topics. And this is the kind of kickoff of that programming. And really pleased to have Jared Cannon, the founder of Simply Good Jars, with us today. And actually, most of the talk you'll hear a number of stories from him. But I'm Robert McNamee. I'm the managing director of the Innovation Entrepreneurship Institute. I run all of our academic programs, including our Master of Science in Innovation Management and Entrepreneurship. And we have a lot of amazing students, a lot of amazing people come into the master's degree, including corporate executives from big companies focused on innovation, and then also entrepreneurs. And it's really exciting again to see all these students and where they go. But Jared is really truly one of our success stories. I have slides about his company and his business model pivots in my business model innovation class. So it's just a really great to see Jared here and see where he's come from our first conversation, sort of several years ago, right, Jared?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Exactly. So Jared is when he came to us, and when I first met him, he was an executive chef. He had actually had a catering business, I think, as an entrepreneur, and he was really curious about kind of furthering himself and really finding what entrepreneurial opportunity he wanted to execute on. And he was really a driven entrepreneur, which was great. I've seen him kind of go from that point to launching a venture that had like a huge waiting list and tremendous success, lots of PR throughout Philadelphia, two various rounds of funding. Most recently, I think about 6 or 7 or 8 weeks ago, you had a press release about $1.6 million raised, expanding into new markets and everything. So it's been really exciting to kind of watch your journey. But I just want to kick things off, if you don't mind, kind of going back to the beginning and talking a little bit about your motivation. Like, what inspired you to launch Simply Good Jars, and sort of, what were you looking at when you first got started?
So when I first got started, I actually had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, and how I would even fund it. Before coming into the program, I didn't even know what an angel investor or a venture capitalist was, or that you could even get people to give you money, and they might be okay with losing it and not seeing it succeed or whatever, right? So so there was a lot of, I think, misconceptions in the beginning, but um, we really inspired me to start Simply Good Jars and just backpedal as, through my 18 career in the food business, really seeing this copious amount of food waste, this disconnect between food available for convenient consumption and all this packaging waste that came with it. And for me, there was a moment where I walked into a grocery store and I saw an orange peeled in a plastic example where maybe you a package. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Oh, just
No, it says your network bandwidth's not great. Oh, unfortunate. No, Jared, you're really breaking up quite a bit.
And
can you hear me okay?
And to me, that was like nature gave me.
So, Jared, can you hear me okay? You're breaking up quite a bit.
To be
Sorry, guys, a little technical difficulty here. Jared, can you hear me okay?
Slow down. Okay, is that better?
I think it is right now. You're a little better right now, actually. Yeah. Well, maybe.
Be better now?
It is a little better now. We'll have to see if it lasts. Do you want to? Sorry, we couldn't hear actually any of that, what you were just saying. Guys, stay tuned. Give us 1 second here. No, it's really not great.
I turned off video, so maybe there's an issue there.
Yeah, it sounds a little better now. That it is possible if you turn off video, it might work better. Can you hear me okay? Apparently not. Guys, just 1 second. Jared's relogging in back in, I think.
Can you hear me now?
It's better. With no audio, it's definitely better. It may not be the best connection, but I guess we'll give it another
no
go.
Video, you mean?
Yeah, with no video, yeah, it might be better. So yeah, I guess we'll give it another go. Sorry, we couldn't hear anything you were just saying though.
Okay. No worries. This technology stuff, I'll tell you, it'll throw you for a loop sometimes.
That's why you went with simpler technology in your machines, in your vending machines. So go ahead.
We're more reliable, but let's just leave it at that.
So go ahead, yeah, if you don't mind starting back in the beginning.
Yeah, so I mean, when if I rewind a little bit farther, 18 years in the culinary industry really kind of put me through a path where I saw all this food waste happening. I saw a bunch of, people hungry on the streets. I would walk in the grocery stores and see, fresh oranges peeled and put into plastic containers. And so there was just all these disconnects happening in the food ecosystem that, me as a student, as a, business operator at the time, running multiple restaurants, trying to eat healthy with that lifestyle. So experience and realize, kind of having my eyes open to the fact that there was a issue that needed to be solved here. And, the way that I approached it was, who better than a chef to take, a food product and try to transport it into something that could be a little bit more fit for that type of market. So that was kind of the initial thinking. And this, why. And then part of joining the master's program was to really start a company and have it work out. I did something. So during the program in the early days,
yeah, Jared, you're breaking up quite a bit actually. I wonder if we're gonna have to connect differently. It's still pretty hard to understand you. Can you hear me okay?
Model.
This is Carrie. It's possible if there's a call-in number. Maybe that would be more direct.
We try and call in. That's what I'm gonna do.
Did you give the number to Jared? Does he have it? Sorry about that, guys. Actually, one of the reasons we don't allow in our online MBA classes, yeah, everybody has to connect with a wired internet connection for kind of this reason. Yeah, I think, guys, the connection issue is not on your end as the listener. It's the connection's on Jared's end, I believe. Do you have Carrie? I think there's a call in. I think that might be Jared. I'm not sure.
Hold on.
All right, I think this is the third and final shot. It's got to be the right one.
Telephones are sometimes more reliable. So thanks, Jared. No, so I heard your motivation about kind of the food waste and sort of that, it seemed like a great, who better than a chef to kind of address that issue.
Yep.
But at that time you still weren't quite clear on exactly how you're going to go about it, right? You recognize this problem.
Yeah, I had no clue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about, so when you did sort of start, when you first kind of settled on, I guess, this business model, like what did your business model look like, and kind of how did you sort of initially start to think about going to market?
So initially it was catering. My aspiration was really looking at vending machines as a delivery mechanism for kind of a retailer or a mini retail type of apparatus. I did a lot of research, and vending machines were actually the third most popular place where people would go buy food in the world. Multiply the number of available vending machines by the amount of purchases per year. And, number one is McDonald's. I'm sorry, number one is Subway. Number two is McDonald's. Number three was vending machines. So that was always the idea. But without money, how am I going to buy a vending machine
Right.
and do these things? So part of the program was also realizing that, trying to get in people's hands as fast as possible to get, instant feedback to make the actual products, continue to evolve was super important. So, even though the vending thing was the original idea, we went to market with a recurring weekly subscription where we would deliver product to your office only. We did not go to homes. And the product that we made was good for 5 days, so you could keep it in the fridge all week at work. And, that's how we launched. Cost us very little. We started on a $1,000 loan from kiva.org. And, $1,000 basically started this company and has kept cash in the bank since day one, which is crazy. So, and I think the recurring revenue model helped, in the beginning to get that started, because we knew what we needed to make, and we would go out, buy food, make that food, and there would kind of be a gross profit there. And at low scale, that was enough to kind of let the business grow somewhat organically. But a month later, we had a waiting list of 750 customers, and then we kind of were like, what do we do now?
Sure. And again, your product has always been, sort of salads, healthy, fresh salads, locally sourced, chef-created, kind of flavorful salads in these kind of in the reusable jars, right? That's always been the kind of product you went with.
Yep.
And so, like you said, you batch them in delivery, and so basically you realize, like, all right, delivery is an easy way to pilot this, but if I had to deliver one meal to somebody, it's going to be too expensive, so that's cost prohibitive. So let me, figure out how to batch these up a little bit, and considering a few different alternatives, you basically settled on basically delivering a week's worth of food, or 3 meals or whatever for a week, and that it would be good for that period of time, and that was a way to kind of keep your costs down a little bit on delivery, I guess, right?
Perfect. You nailed it. Yeah. Okay. So it was the unit economics of delivering a meal to a location, and 1 meal to one person once is, you lose money every time doing it. So
sure.
There had and you don't realize that until you figure it out. I think I made about 3 deliveries off of like an online web thing where people could just like order whatever they wanted, and realized really quickly that was not sufficient use of the $1,000 I had sitting in the bank. So
sure, and that you didn't want to do delivery too was another.
yeah, that was the other thing.
So basically, you got to a 700-person waiting list really, really quickly. It was all just word of mouth, or what do you think was kind of going on there?
Yeah, we didn't spend money, and still to this day haven't spent any money on like Google AdWords or public relations or press releases or anything like that. My strategy was, it costs. The good thing about food is you can go to the grocery store and buy enough product to make 50 of these things for $20 or something, and so that's what we did. And to get the word out, we literally just gave people free food. And, for the most part, if you're a noteworthy, able enough person, I guess, to just take free food from, then it just becomes, oh, wow, that was actually really good. Can I get more? And that's just kind of how it spread.
Now, I'm curious about your decision to kind of become, you always had that goal of saving food waste, but that decision to actually donate meals back to the hungry, which is an important part of your model. Can you talk a little more about the logic that you kind of went in there? So first of all, actually, how many meals have you guys donated at this point? Just first of all.
It's got to be over 18,000 meals.
Great.
In the 2-year period or so.
Tell us a little more about how you made that decision, though.
Yeah, so, for me, the initial thing was around food waste, which, the jar was a natural way to kind of portion control, if you will. So I would say over 95% of our jars come back empty. And, everything's under 600 calories. And there's all this mechanism built into the product and the design. But, then it was about the plastic waste, right? So, you could order delivery sushi, for example, and have a volleyball-sized ball of garbage when you're done with it. And that was just for me for one meal because I was too lazy to go somewhere or I didn't have time. So it was around, how do I really get this packaging back? How do I inspire people to give it back to us? And, the standard is, you get 30% off your next thing for every jar you return, just like kind of the recycling program works in some states. And to me, that was like an accounting nightmare. So I was like, no, let's just promise an action for action. If we get the jar back, what are we going to do? And to me, the connection was just made with like food waste, hunger, this 1 out of 5 Philadelphians, across this statistic, 1 out of 5 Philadelphians don't even know where their next meal is going to come from. And so that was enough to inspire me to say, look, why can't we empower people locally to add value to their own communities by just simply making better, healthier choices for themselves to begin with? And it made a whole lot of sense to me. And, I would say in year 1, our return rate was 93%.
Wow.
And for every product that we sold, which was crazy. And, to date, I think last month was 77%, which is still extremely high. And 77% of 40,000 jars is, pretty good when, 93% of 2,000 jars was our year 1 statistic. So
sure. And so again, just to kind of point out the model, so guys, just to clarify, if you're not familiar with Simply Good Jars, whenever you return back the jar back to one of the vending machines or back to a location, they then donate a meal for people in need, for people that are hungry, and they donate healthy family style meals with kind of hearty salads and fish and chicken, other healthy meals. Whereas a lot of times these donation places are getting canned goods and other kind of food. And so here it was really a shift also towards even creating healthy options, even for the food donations, right? Is that correct, Jared?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we work, now we're in 3 markets. So we're in New York, Philadelphia, and DC, but in Philadelphia, where we started, and to this day, continue to support Philabundance. And Philabundance has a great presence here in the 11 county area. In New York, we support City Harvest, and down in DC, it's World Central Kitchen, the Jose Andres team that kind of go out and help feed disaster areas. So
awesome. And we spoke the other day, and you said at first when you were doing this, your cost for the plastic jars was about $1.06 or so, and then your cost for donating meals was something like 50 cents. So right away, you're saving money and actually at the same time doing good, right? Basically.
Yeah, and what we didn't even realize until probably half a year into it was that we were really treating our packaging, which in the typical, financial statement model would be a cost of goods sold. So, you assume you buy one for everything you sell, and then the next one you sell, you have to buy another one. We actually shifted that into an asset-based management because we would get 80 plus uses. It would last more than a year. And without knowing it, we had created a model that allowed us to leverage the packaging for the food as an asset versus a cost of goods, which changes the whole gross profit margin and the net profit margin and the operating expense, which was a pretty powerful thing to do. So
Sure. Awesome.
we kind of stumbled on that by accident, but once we did, we kind of realized how powerful that could really truly be.
Sure. And, when we teach business model innovation, we talk about creating virtuous cycles in your business model. And this is just a great example where, as you grow, your cost of packaging drops, but then as you get that recycled in and you can just keep reusing it, that cost of packaging drops. As you're able to donate more meals, you're able to get more customers in that want to be a customer client because they want to do good. You're able to donate more meals. You just create that really virtuous cycle among your clients and your donation side of things as well. So tell me, Jared, one of the things is you got a ton of PR, really positive PR kind of early on. Even I think when you first launched, you started getting PR, and then as your wait list was growing, you're just getting more and more PR. Tell me a little about what do you think your secret was to kind of getting that free marketing effectively, right? That free coverage.
Yeah, I have no idea. Didn't do it, didn't really ask for it, definitely didn't pay for it. But one thing that I always tell aspiring entrepreneurs or people working on an idea is to really get a sense of what you are kind of looking to do with your product, and then go out and tell as many freaking people as you can. Go to networking events. Even after I graduated, I attended a bunch of networking events at Temple, and was a time for me to just introduce what I'm thinking, and you'd be surprised how many people come back after, you telling your story and be like, who I know that you should know is this person.
Sure. And
that cycle of just, constant introduction was enough to get enough, people that are writing stories or whatever, or that saw something else and knew a person that, wanted to talk to me or whatever. It was just that kind of playing that, can you introduce me to so-and-so game? By just, introducing the product or the idea, and just naturally that would come out of a lot of those types of events. So I always recommend, tell your idea to as many people as you can, join networking events. You'd be surprised that effect that comes out of that in terms of, if you didn't go there and talk to that person, I wouldn't have met this person, now this happened. And I probably have 1,000 examples of that.
Sure. And I do think, though, again, your product, your business model was novel. The fact that you're doing good, that you're helping Philadelphia, like you had a lot of interest elements to this. I think that, when people did hear about it, that's, I think, what's triggered a lot of these conversations, right? So have you seen that kind of the multi-bottom line aspect of your model? Again, I'm suggesting I think it draws attention, but have you seen that have positive impacts kind of in other ways in your business?
Yeah, it definitely helps attract people that work for a company that has a social mission.
Sure.
That's driven by purpose. And, I think within a company, we went from myself to now 24 employees. The people that, ultimately become, your employees or people that are working for you are the ones that are really doing the bulk of the work at the end of the day. And, without great people, you can't really aspire to do great things. So that happened to be a plus in our column, but that's not the only way to go about getting good people by any means. But
sure.
I think that would be the highest attribution of how that played a positive role in other ways.
Sure. No, yeah, you're right, absolutely. That if your employees believe in what you're doing as an organization, they bring their kind of heart and soul to the job, right, as opposed to just coming for a paycheck.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Now, you've been through a couple of rounds of funding, most recently this $1.6 million. Can you talk a little bit about your experience kind of with investors and kind of going through the investment process, and like where'd you get started in that investment space?
So the first time I ever pitched anyone for money, I had never done that before, knew it was possible, and I was really bad at it.
And, I heard you got better over a few times.
Yeah, really bad. What actually really helped though was, these Y Combinator types of things, just going through that application process and, looking at some accelerators and looking at some business models or even college applications, right? Going through those processes of having to really think cohesively and concisely about how to tell your idea in 150 words or something is really hard to do. And that helps you really tighten down your story, your narrative, the important things you really want to come across in, a short amount of time. And the more that I did those things, the more that I got up in front of people and pitched and asked for money, I think the better I got, the more concise I got, the more I was able to kind of create a better message and a more compelling story, where now things started to catch on. So I think, I probably pitched 50, 60 times and never got a cent. I got a lot of connections though. I never left those types of engagements and didn't get introduced to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So I always also say, like, look, if you're going to start asking people for money, I would assume you're not going to get it, but do it anyway for the practice, but don't leave there without another contact, because, people that you're pitching to are going to know people that can potentially help you.
Sure.
So why not at least take them up on that free connection versus, a check.
Sure, so. Sure. And now your first round of funding, where did it come from?
So first round of funding was friends and family, about $50,000 across about 10 people or so. So not a lot, 5,000 here,
sure.
10,000 there, 5,000 there.
And that was actually at the time when you had actually customers that were waiting for their subscription deliveries. Sure. And you basically just had to get rolling enough to produce, like, buy ingredients and produce food and ship it out and everything, right?
Yeah.
So you had
First institutional investors.
Yeah.
Right. First institutional investors was about a little over a year into the business operating. So crossed the 1 year mark, kind of had my story down. What I had to learn though was there's a change in thinking where you're not trying to sell an investor, you really want to try this product and you really want to buy this product because it's really good and here's all the good that it does, and you're trying to sell it like a salesman would sell a product. But the pivot in thinking is that you need to sell a hypothesis that you have something that has the potential to 10x itself on its own in a very short amount of time.
Sure.
And once you start to change that thinking and that approach, then all of a sudden that narrative changes a little bit. But it's really what grabs attention of the investment community to start to understand that you kind of know what you're doing and that you've developed something that if they put $1 in, they can take $10 out later.
Sure.
And that's where that compelling argument comes into play.
Sure. Yeah, you're selling that business and the kind of growth. I mean, to some extent, you're selling this business model is highly scalable, and there's evidence of customer demand, and we're on this track to do X, Y, and Z, right? Now, your latest fundraise was at 1.6 million. Has that sort of changed things, or changed the way you're running the business, the way you look at the business, the way you think about your next steps?
Absolutely, and I think once you get into the selling stock of the company straight up for dollars, you have to be at a point of positioning to pure. The analogy I like to use is if you pour jet fuel on a candle, it's just going to extinguish the flame. But if you go jet fuel on a high temp bonfire, it's just going to explode. And for us, we had to be positioned at a point where we had kind of all the things lined up so that if we were to take in this addition of capital, that we could use it quickly. I think I spent, it was crazy. I spent like my dream salary that I've always aspired to have in 1 month after this investment. But those are the kinds of things, like we had to buy 100,000 jars and 100,000 lids and 100,000 labels, and we had to get it shipped from here to there. And so getting positions to do these kinds of things costs a lot of money. But now all of a sudden we're going to be in over 1,000 retailers in less than 2 months.
Sure.
So yeah, it changes things dramatically for the better. Things never get easier. The more money, the more problems. But in the world of business, there's always good problems to solve, and you kind of pick and choose your battles there. But
sure,
yeah, changed a lot.
So what are you working on today? Like, what can we expect to see next from Simply Good Jars? Like, what are your next steps?
So we're going to be entering into some of the retail spectrums. So we're going to be separating the fridge itself from the jar in some extent. So we'll have approved resellers for the product and very focused. So you'll see us at the Philadelphia airport in 3 terminals as of Monday. We're partnered with La Colombe there. We'll be in some other retailers that I can't announce yet, but in the next couple months. And, you know, in the airport, for example, there's not going to be a fridge there, but, you know, our product's going to be placed. It's through a partnership with another local Philly-based company. Makes a whole lot of sense for that demographic and that, you know, business traveler or, you know, that family traveler that just wants something healthy in that environment. So you'll start to see that. You'll start to see, we've done a pilot with a couple hotel brands locally in the city that will continue to grow. So, you know, in a fridge in a hotel that doesn't have any food, now you can find a kind of fresh salad or yogurt or, you know, item. So that's exciting. And we'll be at about 600 convenience store in 5 states in April.
Wow.
So that's just another example of kind of separating the jar from the fridge. But in all of these markets, you know, once we have saturation, we follow suit with the same vending concept that we started with. That just allows us to have the economics to not go into a market and lose $2 million. We can actually go into a market with cash positive and continue to add income streams.
Sure. And I think it's an interesting journey you go on, and all the lessons you learn early on, sometimes, you know, that core competency carries with you. So, I mean, you had to be very, very picky very early on about which locations you're going to deliver to because you couldn't afford to deliver everywhere. And then you got comfortable estimating the kind of break-even point on your smart vending machines, your smart fridges, kind of right in stores and locations. And now you have to do the same thing at a, you know, regional level, if you will. Like, what regions are you going to go into that you can cost effectively, you know, make enough money to be worthwhile.
Exactly.
So, no, that's really exciting. You know, it's really great. Again, I love to kind of hear the story of these pivoting business models. And, you know, again, you started with the kind of vision, a dream. I think then you figured out how to, as you said in the beginning, how do I learn and test and understand customer demand as rapidly as possible? I think, frankly, even in the beginning, like I remember one of our earliest conversations, you were thinking about raising $25,000 friend and family to buy some vending machines, and that was kind of where you were at. And the challenge is, like, when you don't know anybody, it's actually hard to get permission to put vending machines in places, right? Once you get that critical mass and demand, now you've told me before, like, people are reaching out to you and saying, like, hey, we're in DC. When you come to DC, we want to put your vending machine in 20 of our locations, or, you know, things like that, right? It really changes that conversation.
Yeah, we've never had a sales team. We answer phones, open emails, or you know, meet people in handshakes, and that's how the deals are done or have been to date. So
sure,
you know, it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. And again, I think that one of the things that we see about successful entrepreneurs is their willingness to kind of pivot and learn. And I think a lot of times when you see an entrepreneur that's so steadfast, like, I'm going to do absolutely only this thing, then a lot of times that can be slow, or it may not ever succeed. And I think the power of how you've done this and your success as an entrepreneur, and all credits to you, understanding to say, I'm going to start with this model. Now I'm ready to switch and use this model because I've gotten to the scale and that's not cost effective anymore. Now I'm going to do this. And then again, thinking about your next growth, I think you've done that aggressively, but also very, very successfully. And it's a testament to your success as an entrepreneur. It's your effort and your time and everything. It's been great.
Yeah, I second that wholeheartedly. I think you have to go out and you have to listen to your customers. I mean, the customers are going to tell you what they want, what they expect. And if you're not meeting that, you gotta meet it better.
Sure.
I mean, just another pivot and fail fast, you know, maybe excerpt would be, you know, we have a storage unit we call the graveyard that has probably 18 different versions of the vending machine that ultimately came to market. That, you know, we put it out there and we would be like, we just can't get something out of this that we need from a data point or from a sales transaction or from a velocity standpoint. And we just shut it down and we tried another one. So it's, you know, one of our guiding principles is fail fast, but win big. So, you know, if, you could try anything once, But, you know, if it's not working, you have to kind of throw in the towel, call it what it is, but figure out how you're going to make it better and how you're going to make it work.
Sure.
And that's been our kind of ethos from the beginning.
Sure. So I have one more question, Jared, and then I would like to open it up to some of the attendees. I appreciate you guys listening in. I would like to ask you guys, if you have any questions, if you could actually use the chat window. So in Zoom, there's a chat window, and if you type a question there, Carrie, I'm hoping that you can take a look and see those questions. We can pick a couple to ask Jared, you know, to kind of weigh in on. But in the meantime, I just had one last question, Jared, and this one's a bit self-serving. What was your experience in the master's degree, in the Innovation Management Entrepreneurship master's degree, and how would you talk to somebody that says, like, oh, entrepreneurs don't need to go to school, right? What was your experience, and how might you respond to that, or what do you think?
So, I mean, my immediate advice is it's 100,000% worth your time, but you only get out of it what you put in. So, you know, it's okay to go in, and I did the same thing, going into something like this with kind of an idea, but not even close to fleshed out. But for me, it was about building kind of a foundation of knowledge. Like, I didn't know what an investor was. I didn't even know it was possible. I didn't know what a convertible note or a, you know, a Series A and how these things differ. You know, it was building that foundational knowledge and building a little bit of confidence that, you know, there was actually a path for me with, you know, living paycheck to paycheck and not having a big lump savings to start my own business or whatever, that there's actual ways to go about doing that. And, you know, being able to practice that live, you know, my time at Temple, I was working full time running 18 restaurants in 5 states. I didn't launch even the first iteration of this company until about a year after I graduated. So, you know, for me, it was, like I said, it was building a foundation of knowledge, building confidence, leveraging kind of the networking, a lot of the events and the planning that happens even, you know, outside of class hours, but then also some of the peers, you know, that I sat with side by side, I'm still great friends with today and have helped us in some way in the current business. So, and faculty, obviously.
Sure.
So.
No, thank you. That's great.
And you know, you guys have the MADV program, which was kind of the first institutional party of people I got to invest with. But the cool part about that program is they actually help coach you how to speak to investors, not just try and sell your product. So that was a great Temple sponsored way to test, you know, that aspect or avenue of fundraising.
It's always better to get that first failure out of the way with a friendly audience, right?
Yeah, right.
But
well, the thing is,
it takes practice, right?
Those guys ended up investing in us, you know, 2 years later.
Sure.
So,
apparently that's how the investment goes in those cycles. So just a couple of questions that some of the attendees had here. One is, have you considered using other materials instead of the plastic? And then similarly, how do you clean the jars, and how do you track the number of times you can use them, or when do you know they're not, you know, useful anymore?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to start with glass as a material. Funny thing is, though, to produce any type of product at scale in a glass container in a kind of food safe environment was very hard to do, and a lot of people, you know, would say, what type of jar? Oh, no, it can't help you, right? So, you know, you think of glass and the customer kind of life cycle around your product. You have things like weight, you have things like fear of breakage. There could be a potential where the mouthpiece chips falls into the actual salad and somebody ingests a shard of glass. There's just a lot of things that we went through when we were looking at materials. And for us, it was all about durability, you know, that clearness, so that kind of transparency or the ability to have, you know, a clarity type of material. And a jar that could be functioned and reused and washed multiple times without a change in, you know, fogging or you know, the material wearing down. So that's kind of the way that we structured discovery and glass was actually one of the first materials out of the picture, just based on that food safety element of commercializing a product.
How do you track the number of times you wash it and reuse it and everything?
So the jar itself is built to, it has an individual monitoring tag on it that identifies it smartly. So we know when it's purchased. We count how many are returned to us when we're there 3 or 4 times a week stocking up with a fresh product, and we literally in a Google sheet will tally them, and we bring them back to the factory, and then we basically match that number with the number that are scanned to back in through that same tag that we use to do the transaction with. So it's actually a really closed loop system of that kind of inventory control management, and then we can recognize how frequently we see that jar again. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it really goes back to that learning insights and learning from the data. I mean, all that analytics can let you know, like, oh, people in this location are recycling 99% of the time, and people in this recycling less, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So on the investment side, the question is here: did you give away some equity when you were funded, and how did that kind of work? Or
Yep. So first round, I gave away no equity. I held 100% ownership of the company because it was what's called a convertible type of investment. So we did a SAFE investment, SAFE. It's actually an acronym for Simple Agreement for Future Equity. And what it means is, at a time where I would raise, a threshold of $500,000 in cash, that this investment would then transfer over into actual stock ownership equity of the company. The 1.6 million was actually the round that converted that SAFE. We actually raised about $900,000 on that SAFE investment, which then converted at the time that we just closed on the 1.6 million. So I currently own about 58% of the company, which, my big thing that I try and tell people too is you don't want to be so nitpicky and worried about dilution or equity. If the company's successful, ultimately the founder is going to own somewhere between 5 to 15% of the company, and that's just how it's going to be for a venture-backed type of venture. But if you're selling for $50 or $100 million, it's a lot better than owning 100% of a company that's worth $1 million.
Sure.
So you just kind of pick and choose how you look at it, but
sure, it's a percentage of a bigger pie, right?
Equity and
percentage of a bigger pie, basically,
exactly.
Right? Now, how did you go about setting up your supply chain? Was your supply chain, I mean, I think you kind of teased this a little bit at first. Like at first, you basically just put it online, got an order, took your jar and delivered it yourself. I think it sounds like you did that a couple of times. And then, how did your supply chain sort of develop? And then, when was it ready to go, and how has it evolved over time?
It's constantly evolved, and it's been one of our Achilles heels in what really helped take us from kind of being restrained to being unrestrained. So we're now unrestrained, but we were restrained for a long time with supply chain, especially when you're dealing with a fresh product that has to be maintained under 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So we've since really engaged and hired at the highest level somebody to really erect and manage and create a supply chain specifically for our products, specifically for that are 10 days or less in shelf life. We quickly realized that such a supply chain doesn't really exist. There's people that are great at anything that's more than 10 days, but anything that's less than 10 days, the answer really has been get really crappy products, compartmentalize the chicken and the cheese and the bread and the dressing and whatever. And, it's what you see at, a 7-Eleven or a rest stop or, whatever. It's just kind of tasteless, bland stuff, and it lasts 20 days and whatever. But, what we've found is like, now that we have this supply chain erected, now we can do like fresh fruit. We can do hummus and carrots. We can do watermelon and feta cheese. We can do cottage cheese and, melon and prosciutto. We can do all these things that, we have such high touch, and we have a supply chain built for this this short shelf life that now all these other applicable products fit right in, which is pretty cool.
Well, and that really becomes a huge part of your competitive advantage now. I mean, to some extent, you're more of a supply chain company than anything, right?
Exactly.
And it's interesting, again, that even again, some of your earliest lessons, like by delivering your batches of a week, you had to architect your salads so that they would survive a week, right? And then your next step was to architect them to sit in a vending machine and not go bad. And then your next step is to architect them to go through a more extended supply chain and get to other cities and then get into vending machines and still not go bad, right? I mean, effectively.
Exactly.
So, so another question was about failing fast. How do you kind of assess or know kind of when one of your ideas is not working, and then how do you pivot and kind of evolve from there?
I mean, the best way I would recommend is to, I never wrote a business plan, but I had a pretty comprehensive Excel spreadsheet that kind of gave me a little bit of insight into if I did this or I did this, how would it change the outcome from a cost perspective, from an income perspective, from a cash loss perspective. So what we call it a financial model. Also something that I learned during the master's program, but having that, and you could have some really cool ideas, and I'm famous, in the company for having some of the wackiest and sometimes dumb ideas, but it's like, put it in the model and see what happens. And to me, I really because cash has been king for us. To lose $3,000 a month, a year ago would have been devastating. So, the idea of, we only have this much, runway or cash left in the bank. How are we going to best utilize it? It's like, all right, well, here's the idea. Here's how it would play out. Let's put it into the model and see what happens, and then let's test it for a month and see what actually happens. And if we're seeing encouraging results but not great, we'll do it for another month. And if it's improving, then we're probably on the right track. But if we're getting results that are counterintuitive to that, then it's like, well, let's go back to what we were doing, or try something else.
Sure. Now, somebody else asked, how do you manage quality control of the product as you're expanding and as you're getting to the scale you're at? How do you maintain that quality control?
So as a chef, managing multiple restaurants in multiple states, consistency and quality was by far the hardest to control across a brand that wanted to offer the same product everywhere. And to do that, you kind of have to centrally locate and produce kind of the creme de la creme, or the secret sauce, if you will. So for us, our dressings are pretty paramount. Some of the grain mixtures that we do, some of the purees and things that have a bunch of ingredients. Now, you can buy a tomato most places and it's going to taste pretty good. You can be really picky where you buy the tomato and it's always going to taste really good. But you try and get groups of people to make the same dressing in 8 different states, and with different tools, it's going to come out different. So we've centralized production of all our dressings, all of our sauces, all of our grain mixtures, and all of the things that aren't lettuce and fresh vegetables. And thus, we're able to manage that quality, and we're able to have our partners do the fulfillment of, the packing of the jars at a 2,000 jars an hour type of rate, and maintain that quality, which is key.
So you literally have a secret sauce there, right? But
yeah. Well, the funny thing is we label it, and in the recipe we call it yellow. Like, it doesn't even have a name to tell you what's in it. It's just,
interesting.
1.5 ounces of yellow or whatever, which is really funny.
That's cool. So another question here is, how do you stay motivated in that early phase? When things were, when you're kind of going paycheck to paycheck, and any moment, like one, 2 bad tests in a row would suddenly you wouldn't have the cash flow. Like, how'd you keep your drive, and how'd you keep your motivation?
I don't know. I mean, I think I was motivated by, I had quit a job where I was making 6 figures, and this was kind of my only shot. And I had some family that had invested, and I think getting family involved at some level, even if it's $500 or something, was something that definitely helped keep me motivated, because you have to sit with these people at the table at Thanksgiving, and look, if things go south in this business ever, they would still lose the same money they put in. But at this point, I feel like they would say, that was really cool. I was happy. It was really exciting. It was worth all the, time and energy and dollars or whatever.
Sure.
But having a little bit of that, some sort of commitment from personal friends or family definitely helped keep me motivated, because I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to say that I tried and I failed, and fail in 3 months kind of fail. Because look, by no means is what we're doing a success today. There's still a lot of things that need to improve, and this company could continue to build and grow, and it could easily run out of capital. So, we're by no means past that, threshold. So I think that motivation starts in the early days, but it never really goes away until you're, profiting millions of dollars, on the company financial statements, and or, somebody wants to buy you or something.
Sure. And I would say your investors are probably really happy to hear you continue to use that logic, because you can't just spend money helter-skelter. You got to keep making that same logic that kind of kept you going at the beginning about, we got to make, payroll now, but any of our growths have to be tested. If they're not panning out in that financial model, then they're not going to work, right?
Right.
I think too many companies actually, they just get in a spending spree after they get their kind of funding, and then they just, suddenly 5 years later they spent $30 million. They don't have a sustainable, business model, basically, right?
Yeah, I told you, like, the first month after our big investment, we spent more than I ever thought I would make in a year professionally.
No. No.
And you just kind of scratch your head. You're like, all right, I guess this, this is what it's going to take. But
sure.
But we, it was very intently focused on, products and materials that were going to be used to, grow revenues exponentially, 6 or 7 times beyond that. So,
sure.
Who cares, kind of, but it was just a moment where it's like, this feels really strange,
Yeah. Well, so just a final last question. Any advice you would give to kind of early entrepreneurs, or, I mean, frankly, also innovators, right, in a corporate setting that are sort of just kind of going down this path? Like, any advice you would give kind of from what you've learned?
Yeah, and I'll kind of go back to I kind of preluded to it earlier, but, when I say tell your idea to as many people as you can, you don't have to tell people exactly how you're going to do something or exactly how you figured it out, but find a way to tell your story and the problem that you're trying to solve in a way that, it garnishes a response from whoever's the listener of like, oh my God, I have that problem. I would buy that. And look, people will tell you nice things when they're not actually giving you money for it. But the more you can refine your story and kind of iterate the way that you are kind of addressing the problem that you feel like you have an answer to, and the more with the goal of getting out and telling a lot of people and listen to what they have to say. I mean, I did that so many times and realized, when I was thinking of different types of salads and recipes and formulations that I wanted to do as a chef isn't necessarily what the consumer wanted, in those moments or in those locations. And one thing for us is, like, people don't want raw onions in the office. And we had raw onions in our products for a long, long time. And, after listening to that so long, we took raw onions out of all of our products. That's just a small example. But tell as many people as you can what you're working on and how you're going to solve the problem that you're solving. And you don't have to give away the secret sauce. You don't have to say, here's my design for something I want to patent that's going to, stop things from going down in between my car seat and my seatbelt. But if you can tell somebody, like, how many times you drop, a pen or your phone down that crack? What if, I put something there that would never happen again? Oh my God, that would be great. Sure. Now I think I might kind of have something here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, customer centric from the beginning to the end, right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, well, Jared, I really, really appreciate you joining us today. I'm glad we got through some of the technical glitches in the beginning. Thank you very much again. Really valuable. We'll share some more information about this. And guys, thank you everyone else for joining us as well. So I just want to kind of close briefly with we run graduate programs to teach these topics, and we run everything from courses in creative problem solving to business model innovation to new venture creation and entrepreneurial thinking to lean startup, et cetera, innovation strategy. The courses are designed to be really, really relevant if you're in the kind of model that Jared was in, or if you're in a corporate setting working on innovation. And so we run everything from our master's is kind of our flagship product. It's a 30 credit designed for working professionals. You can do it part-time while you're working, or you can do it full-time. It can be completed in 1 to 2 years. It can be done in person or online. All the courses are done online as well. There's 3 concentrations. There's the entrepreneurial concentration for entrepreneurs or people that want to work in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. There's innovation strategy for people that want to design and build next generation organizations. And there's technology and innovation management for people that want to basically manage new product development teams, engineering teams, et cetera. But the master's, that's kind of the flagship product. We also have 3 certificates. One's in entrepreneurship, another one in innovation strategy, and lastly, healthcare innovation, which is a mix of healthcare and innovation. Those are 9 credits with 3 courses. But there's also a huge set of courses you can do. We have, like I said, business model innovation classes, and there's very, very practical tools. So just a couple of tools for you guys if you want to kind of do some of the things that Jared has kind of talked through. One is I do recommend creative problem solving processes and design thinking processes. So design thinking is a lot of that customer centrism that we kind of closed on there, and design thinking perspectives can be really powerful. And thinking about and using design thinking approaches to solve problems can really keep your users and your customers front and center. The other thing is business model innovation. Business model generation is the book, but business model canvas and these perspectives, these are extremely valuable, whether you're in a corporate setting or as an entrepreneur, framing out and exploring your business model, playing with alternative business models, understanding how to create those virtuous cycles, how to analyze and understand synergies within your business model and eliminate any disconnects or vulnerabilities. That's a really, really powerful tool and approach. And we teach this extensively in a business model innovation class. I also recommend 10 types of innovation. So I think realizing that it's not just in your product, right? And you heard today a lot of different innovations that solve different problems, right? A different supply chain partner, different distribution channel, a different way to draw in attention with the PR and what have you, different revenue structures, et cetera. And so actually 10 types of innovation is another really valuable perspective that can help you understand that there's a lot of ways I can innovate and overcome problems and get you off of maybe an excess focus on products. So those are just a couple of perspectives that we teach in the program. Stay tuned. We'll send you information about courses and everything coming up. We run courses in the summer as well as the fall, a full portfolio courses. We also have upcoming Innovation Leader Speaker Series events and what have you. So please stay tuned. If you're on this call, you're getting those emails. So pay attention to some of those events. We have some great speakers like Jared that come out with us. So Jared, thank you very much again. Really appreciate your time. Always great to talk.
Yeah, happy to be here, and highly encourage everyone to look into the program. It was pivotal for me. So.
And look for Simply Good Jars vending machines, or it sounds like in a number of other retail channels near you, right?
Yeah. Now you can travel with the Simply Good Jars on a plane.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Good luck in New York and DC. I'm excited to continue to hear the progress. So.
All right.
Thanks, guys. That's it for our webinar today. Have a great day.